Hi, I'm a woman, I'm Asian, I'm Japanese. I'm polite, supportive, and punctual. These are stereotypes which describe me. I benefit from some of my stereotypes, but sometimes I don't. Stereotypes. What do you think about this word? According to the Oxford Dictionary, stereotypes is a fixed idea or image of a particular type or person or thing, which is not often true. Many people hold stereotypes, but they are not often true. I want to argue that although stereotypes prevail wherever, whenever, Japanese women are one of the groups who expose themselves to stereotypes and become vulnerable the most to them. I'm a graduate student studying international politics. I've traveled to around 20 countries, some in Europe, Middle East, and East Asia. Along the way, I've struggled with stereotypes. Today, I will share my experience and tell you how I try to free myself from stereotypes. When I was little, I was way fatter than I am now. Because my appearance was not common in Japan among girls, I was quickly spotted as a target of exclusion by mean classmates. I was sad and knew something was wrong. But I also knew I could not change my appearance quickly, so instead I tried to find my style. For example, whenever I needed to choose something, I preferred something less stylish because I thought it would balance who I was and who I was expected to be. However, I sometimes felt insecure and was not confident enough with my style because of the environment of Japanese society. Fortunately, I have had a chance to know and experience international culture. I realized the difference between what I learned, the reality around me, and the former made more sense to me. That's why I wanted to get out of the environment that I was surrounded by to seek new perspective that I could not find in my life in Japan, and something more essential, the prevailing stereotypes that people have internalized. My expedition went adventurously. When I was 21 years old, I traveled to Turkey with one of my female friends. We kept being greeted in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, which is typical reaction towards Asian people in other countries. However, as soon as they discovered we were Japanese, they looked happier and started to flirt with us. The worst case was when my friend and I went shopping and looked at some scarf in a bazaar. One of the male shopkeepers started to wrap a scarf around the neck of my friend, touching her body, which she was frowning about. But she couldn't say no to his oppressive behavior. Also, other shopkeepers started to flirt with me and ask me for marriage. As I mentioned, this was the worst case, but there are other similar cases from my traveling experience too. Once, I asked a guy from one of my Moroccan tribes why Moroccan men prefer Japanese men to other nationalities, because he asked me for marriage precisely because I am Japanese. He replied that Japanese people had been told to be quiet and wealthy, and they would dedicate themselves to men. His response opened my eye to how fetishized, looked down on, mistreated a Japanese women are. You might think I faced these stereotypes because I interacted with men. However, that's not the case. It's happening worldwide. It happened when I was invited to the New Year's party among business people in London. 4 Japanese female students were there to study abroad. In the event, we expected to hear and get advice about career building from participants. They were composed around 50 people, half of whom are Japanese men, 2 Japanese women, and others from other countries, including the UK. In our group, a Japanese man started saying that these Japanese girls were too weak and naive to explore their life abroad, so please give them support and help. And I remember that only Japanese men showed their agreement with his words, and the other looked very awkward. I felt uncomfortable with his words, behavior, and atmosphere there. I felt and learned two things from the incident in London. First, I felt offended because Japanese girls were labeled in a gender stereotypical way. Second, I was pretty shocked by the behavior of the Japanese man and the people around him who spent a long time in a career in the UK. I see diversity and some slogans tackling gender inequality in the country, so I did not imagine the people living there would not be naturalized with such culture. As a child, I expected a different world overseas, where gender equality was achieved and mutual respect matured. However, I need to admit that it was just my imagination. I realized that not only stereotypes prevailing around the world, but also being Japanese woman has already carried the vulnerability of being labeled and restricted in being different from the traditional concept of Japanese woman. The idea is rooted in some old Japanese TV programs, shows, animes, or famous Western old movies. They describe Japanese women as innocent and quiet. Additionally, due to Japan's dramatic economic development, Japanese women are living or expected to live more luxurious lives. Eventually, the stereotypes of Japanese women was established, recognized, recreated, and consumed conveniently in men's-led context. Therefore, Japanese women cannot escape from the cage, especially those who want to be recognized with the opposite personality, such as being independent, having their own opinion, and setting life goals not just as marriage, as more making difference in this world. These characteristics are still told as brave choices among girls. Sadly enough, the world has been recreating this unfortunate structure. So what? What should I do? What can I do as a woman and Japanese woman? Is there no way to escape from the solid cage? No. I don't want to give up and stand in the position supporting the recreation of stereotypes. I want to break it. Why don't you break it? Why don't we break it together? We will gain the power to make a difference in this world because I believe in the same way. Here, I want to suggest 3 steps to liberate yourself from stereotypes. First, don't miss your tiny feelings about how you were treated or labeled. This is the first step to getting close to your liberation from stereotypes. Japanese women are not used to noticing the discomfort in their minds, probably because the culture has covered and made their true feelings invisible. For example, in Japanese culture, people have been told that they should not bother with their selfishness, or when things are going on, they should not interrupt the flow. Otherwise, you'll be pointed out that you cannot understand the appropriate behavior. Haven't you experienced something like this? I know it's pointless. However, traditionally, the idea can work in intense situations, such as evacuation life after natural disasters. You are expected to help each other and follow norms for collective survival by waiting for instructions, lining the queues, and so on. Yet again, it doesn't necessarily mean you must hide your feelings. Instead, you can speak up and stand up for yourself. Second, find, study, and meet your role models as many as possible. When I was a teenager, I imagined the singer Katy Perry, politician Michelle Obama, and actor Emma Watson. In my case, I specified their traits as female leaders who liberate themselves and empowered women by asserting the importance of women's solidarity. Since I hadn't been liberated enough to be like them, understanding concepts and seeking those role models were pretty important to me. I studied at women-only university for my undergraduate, and I found myself there by coincidence. Interestingly, I bumped into professors who actively criticized harassment and discrimination against Japanese women. I was profoundly reminded that I was also internalized with somehow mended understandings against women. And mutual respect is a fundamental norm that is a stream concept that could be a fundamental norm for everyone. Also, thanks to the pre-COVID situation, by going abroad alone and staying in a women-only dormitory, I met the single independent female travelers from all over the world, and I gained energy and confidence from them. Here's the last step. Believe in yourself more than you think you can. Believing requires time and confidence. My mentality had been devastated because I found that I was too sensitive to accept being different from others. However, those incidents gave me a chance to overcome and cultivate the confidence to be a stronger, more independent, hardy, gritty, determined, and clever woman. To believe in myself, I try to manage the fear of rejection as well. For instance, when I was categorized in a gender stereotypical way, I try to oppose words from people by saying, I don't think so. I think that's too generalized. I don't think everyone considers them that way. At first, I was anxious to say those phrases. Having experienced small steps, my mindset came to like this. I might not be heard or understood, but I don't care, because my view is worth hearing and understanding, and is more essential to protect and support myself. Above all, I ended up enjoying disturbing the concept and I'm feeling I'm creating new concepts of Japanese woman. So, the conservative idea about women, especially Japanese, prevails worldwide. And stereotypes are recreated by someone who doesn't care. It might be risky for us to speak up and speak up about idea because we might be excluded, not be heard, and understood. Furthermore, I'm aware of the danger that we might be assaulted by standing up against fixed and internalized idea, especially about gender. However, if we don't speak up, people will miss chances to listen to us and to be aware that they might be wrong. If we keep hesitating to be ourselves, we will miss the opportunity to meet someone, to be as we are, and to meet someone who truly understands us too. Over stereotypes, we can be either victims or perpetrators. This will potentially follow us around all our life. We can be completely free from it. Ultimately, we may not know which terms can be regarded as stereotypes. But we can reduce the impact of stereotypes by replacing them with hypotheses about people. It means that you are not labeling people, instead you are trying to see the nature or essential about people with care, which we can call respect. If this mindset or way of interacting with people becomes normal, I believe no one needs to hesitate to be oneself. I traveled to South Korea alone in the same dormitory. I met a girl in the same room, had 2 or 3 cases of luggage, because it was the first time for me to travel abroad alone, and I was nervous, and I wanted someone to talk to, and have good beginning of finding a new relationship without stereotypes. I spoke to her in English step by step. I removed my stereotypes as much as possible, and gave myself an introduction first so that she could guess what kind of hypothesis I might have against her. In that conversation, I came to talk about my character and identity as a Japanese woman. Interestingly, the travel experienced French girl I find later also replied that she is also struggled with her identity as a young sister in a relationship with her father because she felt mistreated by him as a naive, weak girl who could be a helper of her father. This conversation became a discussion. After sharing our thoughts, we became motivated with each other. This was the experience where I reached a point where respect opens mutual deeper understandings and builds strong bonds between people. The world we live in is not perfect. Especially regarding gender equality in Japan, I'm embarrassed to say that Japan has to discuss so many things, and they should improve so many things as well. This conservative idea was not established in a day. It has a long history. Some people are still unconsciously contributing to strengthening stereotypes. Who changed this unfortunate situation? Changing cannot be done by an individual. It should be rather a group of individuals. We are the agents. Believe in yourself to break the solid stereotypes for a better world for us, even little by little. Let's make a difference. Thank you.